thank you for your time. I'm Dr. Ray, and I want to talk to you today about forgiveness and healing for broken people. Brokenness is when things do not work according to plan, according to how it's designed. And all of us, in one way or the other, are broken. When individuals are broken, the relationship will also be broken, at least from time to time. And you can see this in broken relationships within families, between spouses and parents and the children. And you can see it in the workplace between business partners, employers and the workers, and sometimes also between supervisors and the subordinates. The brokenness in relationships in society can also be seen, between government and the citizenship. A key element for restoring a broken relationship, in my view, is this matter of forgiveness. We need to know how to ask for forgiveness, how to offer forgiveness, and how to receive forgiveness. And that is what I want to talk to you today about. In any broken relationship, there are always two sides, at least two sides. There is the perspective of the offender, and then there is the perspective of the offended person. In such a situation, when we talk about forgiveness, we are not just talking about a feeling or emotions. It is not natural to be happy for someone who has hurt you deeply. But we're not talking about feelings and emotions. When we talk about forgiveness, we're not talking about forgetting either. Forgiveness then is to give up your right to revenge, or to willingly surrender your desire to see somebody punished because they have hurt you. Now, to ask for forgiveness, on the other hand, is to say that I deserve punishment, I deserve vengeance, but rather I am asking you to give me mercy. That's what asking for forgiveness means. When a relationship is fully restored because forgiveness has been given and received, both sides can mutually want the best for the other person. But I must also point out, forgiveness does not mean that society has to give up its system of justice. You see, as long as humanity is broken, as long as there are broken people, we simply need a way to determine right and wrong, and a way to address broken people taking advantage and harming other people in society. But we need a justice system that is fair, just, timely, and objective. Now, you may ask the question, why do we need to forgive? Well, God says so, first and foremost. In the Lord's Prayer says, forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. But secondly, we need to forgive because, it's healthy for us. Holding grudge and bitterness in our hearts for long periods of time might have psychological effect. It may also have medical effects, physical effects on our being. We may not be able to draw upon the resources to live our normal lives, take care of our families, earn a living the way we should, if we have long-term bitterness and grudges in our heart. Beyond that, we may not even be able to move forward with our lives. But it's also a good thing to practice forgiveness because society needs it. That was the idea that Moses had in the wilderness when he instituted what was called the Jubilee. Once every 50 years, everyone's debts, everyone's problems were forgiven, and society had the opportunity to start afresh. Now let's talk about the offender. How should he ask for forgiveness? In my view, the offender must first become aware of his offense. Sadly, many of us are not aware that we are causing offense. It's a good thing for all of us to practice humility. And like the psalmist says, search me, O God, and know my heart. Try me and see if there be any wicked way in me. Each of us can cause offense without actually realizing it. So it's a good thing to be open, to ask others how our actions were perceived, how our words were perceived. But the second step for the offender is to be honest with themselves and with God. Now, sometimes pride can get in the way. We know we've caused the offense, but we don't even want to admit it to ourselves. But this is a necessary step, and to confess it to God makes us realize that we need God's help to keep moving forward. And that sets the stage for the next step. As an offender, you should go to the person that you offended and say, I am sorry. And by the way, don't go trying to explain why you did what you did. It only makes matters worse. Instead, I encourage you to say, I am sorry, I was wrong, and even go further to say, will you please forgive me? Now, what about the offended? How can the offended get healing for his hurt? The first thing I have to say to you, if you've been hurt deeply by someone, maybe your spouse, is that forgiveness is a choice. It's not just a feeling. It's a decision you make to give up your right of vengeance, your right to see punishment, and your right to see justice. It's a choice you make. No one can force you to make it, and no one can prevent you from making that choice. But the second thing I'd like to say to you, if you're the offended person, is that forgiveness is something you yourself need. Remember the parable of the unmerciful servant that Jesus told his disciples? You need forgiveness from God. We all are in constant need of God's forgiveness. Think about that as you struggle with forgiving somebody else. The third, if you've made that choice of forgiveness and the feelings continue to come, let me say to you, you are not alone. Forgiveness is an ongoing process. You have got to keep affirming that decision to forgive, to give up your right to see vengeance over and over again. And I can assure you that over time, it gets better and better and less painful. Finally, I would suggest to you that as you consider forgiving, I would suggest to you that God is bigger than all the offenses that have been done to you. I'd like to remind you of Joseph. Potiphar's wife caused him grievous harm, not to mention his brothers. But it was that prison, it was in that prison that God used to elevate Joseph to fulfill his lifelong dream, literally, in which he became Prime Minister of Egypt. So God is able to use whatever offense has been done to you for his own glory and for your own benefit. Now, here are 3 ways to help you practically overcome the difficult practice of forgiving somebody else. Number 1, practice a lifestyle of worship. As you worship God for his attributes, for his activities, and remember his titles, he will become bigger and the offenses that others have caused you will become smaller. Number 2, pray for your offender by name. Pray for the person who has offended you by name. It is literally impossible, in my view at least, to hold a grudge against somebody that you are genuinely praying for. And number 3, you might need to talk to somebody about it. By that I mean a pastor, a counselor, a good, trusted, reliable friend, not to gossip, but to be able to talk through the issues that you're going through, even as you make the choice to forgive. Well, thank you so much for spending this time with me. I hope this has been meaningful to you. I look forward to see you again next time. Till then, stay blessed and stay faithful in Jesus' mighty name.